this is Tom Hubbard, and welcome to another edition of the Community Spotlight. Today, I am at the home of Brad Myers, local artist, and so much more. Brad, hello. I want to talk to you a little bit today about your artwork, and a little bit about various things that you do. Most of the community know you because you're an old-time radio guy, was on WCOH for many years. So, kind of introduce our audience to yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, of course, as you mentioned, a radio career here in the area with various local radio stations. I did that for about the past 30 years and still actively doing that through my outdoor show, George Outdoors Radio, and kind of got into a little bit of what people call art. I certainly don't consider myself an artist, but maybe a BS artist, but aside from that, I'm not one to judge if somebody calls this art. Well, that's fine by me, but what you're looking at here are Lichtenberg figures, the art form of what we call electropyography.
Electropyography.
Electropyography, or Lichtenberg figures. Fractal wood burning is another terminology for it. Something I kind of stumbled across trying to come up with a unique design pattern for building a tomahawk for my son.
Right.
And was doing a handle for it and wanted something a little more than just a traditional wood burn on the handles.
Well, it looks quite not like anything I've ever seen before. I mean, the way it just goes into a natural like tree pattern, and there's no consistency. It seems random.
It is. It's very unique. There is no two pieces that are ever going to be done the same, whether it's a burn or a complete piece. They're all unique. They've got their own individual fingerprint, if you will. And basically, this is a technology that goes way back and actually has a little bit of lineage to modern technology today.
Okay.
Back in 1777, German physicist George Christoph Lichtenberg was conducting some studies on high voltage static electricity, and he built this big machine that basically generated large amounts of high voltage static electricity. And by creating these electric charges, when he discharged the static electricity onto a surface, generally metallic, or in a lot of cases an insulator, after that discharge of electric charge, what he would do is sprinkle various types of metallic dust onto these discharge areas. Okay. And what would happen is the metal particles would align where that static electricity was. Almost like a magnet, if you will. And by doing that, he would take some paper and press down on those discharged areas where those metal particles were aligned, and he was able to copy these patterns that were created by these electric discharges.
Okay.
And that was actually the predecessor and technology that led the way to Xerox.
Really? That's quite
Absolutely.
interesting. Just by copying, because he wanted to copy the patterns that he was getting.
Right, because he was recording the electro discharges and, kind of studying those. Electricity became part of daily lives. There was a notice amongst engineers and electricians working around various equipment, especially where there were insulators. In the case of maybe a failure of a component, when a large discharge was created, they would notice these patterns actually burned into the insulators.
Really?
And these same patterns you'll find on individuals that have been struck by lightning, if they survive.
Wow.
Yeah, it's...
So when people get struck by lightning or electric shock, they have this similar patterning?
Very, very, very possible, and in a lot of cases, yes. As a matter of fact, we've got a piece right here. It's a gun holster. Of course,
that's on leather. That's not on wood like the rest of it.
But it's skin.
Right.
So will it attach to skin, and will it create that pattern on skin? Well, we know lightning carries a lot of voltage.
Right.
And
speaking of voltage, how many volts does it take to do your art on the wood like this, or on the leather, indeed?
The process that I use, basically, what I do is I use transformers.
Okay.
Whether it's an AC transformer, an alternating current, or a direct current, DC transformer. They have their own pluses and minuses to them, their pros and cons, and their own signature that they lay down.
Okay.
Patterns like this, for instance, down here, and these boxes were all done with the AC transformer. It's a step-up transformer.
Okay.
And basically what we're doing is we're taking 120 volts out of our power outlet, and we're upping the amperage and ideally the volt. And by going in at 120, we're coming out at about 2,000 volts.
No doubt this is extremely dangerous work.
Absolutely. The DC transformers a little less volatile and dangerous because they have a lower current and a lower amperage.
2,000 volts. I mean, that's...
Well, 2,000 volts is a lot, but it's the amperage that's the real danger part, because that amperage it takes a half of an amp to stop the human heart. So this form of artwork, if you will, has claimed lives as long as people have been doing it. And it's unfortunate because, I remember last year, right about this time, Easter Sunday, a father and his son, a guy in his 40s, went out to their shop. Dad was going to do some woodwork, turning some bowls on a lathe, and the son was going to burn some Lichtenberg figures. They went in there to the shop to set up. The son went over to start up his device, and Dad heard an explosion, turned around, and his son was stone cold dead.
Wow.
And this is Easter Sunday. This is how their family started off their Easter Sunday last year. The beginning of this year, a guy out in Arizona, a young fellow in his 20s, don't believe he had been doing this too long, and, dead.
You definitely have to have precautions set in place.
You have to have
and
precautions.
like a standard operating procedure, and just a general knowledge and awareness of electricity, of how it works and conducts.
It's highly dangerous, highly deadly. There's one company that builds a particular device to do this type of work, and it's with a DC transformer. It's low voltage, and I'm not very familiar with it because myself and other people that are, involved in this type of work, what they do is they build their own devices. I built my own devices.
Right.
In order to do that, you've got to do extensive research, and you just can't emphasize safety enough. I mean, it's so dangerous, and especially when you're dealing with these AC transformers, they're just a loaded gun.
Well,
a live grenade ready to go off at any time.
Since it's so dangerous and deadly, what attracts you to this form of artwork?
You're talking to a guy that jumped in a truck, a 57 Chevy with 2 Pratt & Whitney jet engines on it, ripped down the dang runway at Falcon Field at 400 plus miles an hour.
Right.
I just kind of like that stuff.
Well, yeah.
I used to weld, and I still do, not professionally, but
So you get an adrenaline rush off of this. That
I appreciate what it does.
Right.
I mean,
no doubt that it's a very beautiful form of art, and
and as far as the danger, the risk goes, I know it's there. I respect it. I'm aware of it. I roll my dice. I takes my chances.
And you calling it artwork, and people call it artwork. I definitely do, but it seems to be more functional than something you can just hang on a wall and enjoy looking at. I mean, I can see this on molding or coving or various types of furniture. I mean, it's more than just...
Oh, absolutely. And, it's interesting that you brought that up because I do have some trim work that I have done as samples. It was inspired by being at a friend's house, and, I walked in the kitchen, it was low light, and I could have sworn that, the molding had this type of, pattern on it. And what I was actually looking at was a border of wallpaper.
Right.
But it's when it got me thinking, hey, that would make a real interesting bit of work on, molding as opposed to paint, something a little bit different. And, I had some unfinished molding here, so I snatched a piece off the wall, a chair rail, and put some burns on it, and put some nice finish on there, and put it back on the wall, and was quite pleased with the way it looked. And I saw good potential for that. Same with furniture. I mean, I started with this to do a tomahawk handle, and before I knew it, I was pulling furniture out of dumpsters and off the side of the road, and
right. Taking donations, were you?
Yeah. And some of the pieces we'll look at, in addition to that molding, are some furniture pieces I've been doing. I've got a Lane coffee table sitting upstairs now that was pulled off the side of the road. It was covered in hideous paint and god-awful tacky wallpaper. And why they would put that on the table, I have no idea. But I brought it home mainly just to practice on, just to, get some experience in trying to do furniture. Now, as I started stripping it down, I, realized that the ornate trim on this table was just astounding. And, as I really started working the table down and stripping it down, I noticed more and more features about it. And I thought, this is a nice table. And I looked underneath it, and there I saw the name Lane. And of course, I remember the name Lane from a long time in fine furniture. So the table's been, a work in progress. It's something I'm, putting time and effort into. But, it does have a lot of applications for that. And what I try and do is utilize this same type of work, but to repurpose, recondition furniture, to give it a new life, and to make it functional art.
Now, Brad, do you do this mainly for yourself, or do you offer some of your work to the public? Can they purchase things from you?
Yes, no, actually, it's all for sale, like anything else.
Right.
Anything's for sale. And that's one of the reasons I've started to do furniture, because I don't need all that furniture. I'm a man of simple needs. A wire spool will do me quite well.
Right.
And I've even got a wire spool that I'm going to put some burns on eventually. But
if people were interested in some, is there a place they can go and see what you have, or a way to contact you and talk about it, or even if they have a project maybe they want you to do for them?
Absolutely. I've got some websites that I'm working on. I've got a shop that I'll be opening soon on Etsy, and a Facebook page as well.
You have you're set up upstairs to do some of this kind of work. Can we go up and watch you burn some pieces?
Absolutely. I've got some wood up there, as a matter of fact. Some pieces I'm currently working on, and some pieces I'm just starting. So timing's well, we'll head upstairs and do a little bit of burning. And if you feel froggy, I'll even let you try your hand at it.
Right. Okay. Let's see what it's about.
All right.
So, Brad, what are you doing now?
We're pre-soaking the wood, and I'm getting my machine set up here. We're going to set up an AC transformer and a DC transformer, and we'll kind of explain those when we get them up and ready to roll. As you know, wood's not conductive. We got to make wood conductive, so we pre-soak it, let the wood soak up some of this water, because it dries out real quickly when this heat process starts. And what we'll do is entice the energy flow by putting a catalyst. And the catalyst will be one of a couple of different things we'll be using. On the softwood, primarily, we'll be using baking soda, which I've got right here. And then we've got oxalic acid in the form of Barkeeper's Friend that I'll be bringing you momentarily. And that will be the other catalyst. That'll primarily be used for the oak, because oak has got tannins in it, and the tannins react with the sodium in the baking soda. What happens is, as a result, you get green wood, and we don't want green wood because it's not a pleasant green. So we'll use oxalic acid for the oak. Incidentally, you do use baking soda when you're doing oak and you get a green tint to it. You can clean it up with the oxalic acid. David D. The Barkeeper's Friend here, the oxalic acid, and our baking soda. We warmed our water up, so that'll help increase the conductivity by opening the pores up of the wood more and allowing it to soak more of the catalyst in. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and give it a pre-soak with the baking soda on our softwood. This I believe is pine. It may be poplar, but I'm pretty sure it's pine. Either way, it's a softwood, and either will react to the baking soda negatively. We get that down. I also got a piece of wood that I started on yesterday, and the pattern came out okay, but it was a fresh milled piece of board, and a little bit on the green side. And the funny thing about the wood when you get it green is, if you get it real green, it burns great. If you get it in between green and dry, it doesn't burn great at all. So we're kind of in between that green and dry, and it's a little bit ornery. So we're going to come back and we're going to fill in where it didn't burn, and I'll explain that in a minute. But we'll be using a different setup to do that particular burn. So, alrighty. We're going to go ahead and get some burning going on. What we've got here are two different setups, an AC transformer and a DC transformer. Now, as I mentioned, one's more dangerous than the other, although they're both potentially deadly. Though this one is a possibility of death, this one is guaranteed death. And this is the AC transformer. This is a step-up transformer, and we'll be going from roughly around 120 volts up to a whopping 1500 volts. And this transformer over here is actually 6,000 volts. But with 6,000 volts, being it's DC, it's low in current and low in amperes. So a lot lower amps than this one over here. And the amps are what kills you, not the volts. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're talking about this, though they are, you know, both potentially lethal. What we've got are softwoods that we're going to be starting with. We've pre-soaked them, and we've then also wet them down with our catalyst. Now we've got two different catalysts out here that we're going to be using. One of them is baking soda, and that's on these two boards here. And the other is the oxalic acid that we put on this board. And we'll see if there's much of a difference, if any, although I doubt we'll see a whole lot of difference in them. But what we're going to have to do is keep soaking these, and then also I've got a spray bottle that I will be using from time to time to kind of quench the burn, because not so much with the DC transformer in this one here, but with the AC transformer over here, it tends to get real hot, and what you'll do is you'll have your fractals start getting real deep channels burned into it. And sometimes that's a desired pattern that we want. In this case, we want some but not too much, because if we let it go too much, it'll actually burn through the wood, and that we don't want with these pieces. We're also going to be doing a piece over here, and I need to go ahead and wet it now. But this piece over here was one that we started yesterday, and though we were using our AC transformer with it, and we got some good fractals, it wasn't quite what I wanted. Piece here. Now it hadn't been cleaned up. And what happens is after we get done with the burn patterns, we'll have to come back and we'll have to clean out all the carbon that's built up inside these fractals. So what we'll do is we'll brush them down. Primarily I'll use a nylon brush, or if I can, you know, locate it and have one, which I don't right now, a good brass brush with soft bristles on there. By using that, we're not going to damage the wood any, as I found out when I was doing my first piece of furniture. Steel brushes do not work well with soft woods. Caused a lot of work for me. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and soak this with some oxalic acid, and we're going to be using the DC transformer on this one here, because it's going to be allowing me to get more control. It's a slower burn and it's more controllable. Because it's a slower burn, what I'm going to be doing is filling in areas like in here and in here. See, I can't do that now with this AC transformer, because what's going to happen, no matter where I hit this with a charge, that electric charge is going to race throughout these fractals, and those two electric paths are going to want to catch each other. You know, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to reach each other and find a ground. That's what electricity does. So what we're going to do is use the DC transformer, because it's slower, and it's going to give me a chance to detail in these areas in here, because that's what I'm going for with this particular burn. I've got, you know, two big channels burned into it here from our patterns with the AC transformer, so now it's going to detail it out. It's kind of like using a roller versus a fine detail brush, if you will. So, anyway, we're going to set this one back out of the way, and we're going to fire up this one. And this is our, as I said, our DC transformer here. What we've got set up is I've got the power coming in through the back of the box, in through a junction box, comes up through this kill switch runs over to the light, through the breaker, and then into the transformer itself. And from there it goes out the two leads. These are called chicken sticks, and what I'm going to be using is these chicken sticks, get them in order here, to kind of control where I'm getting my burns going. Now, the electricity can't reach me through the non-conductive PVC pipe that I'm holding in my hands. But what's going to happen is it's going to go quick, because it is the AC transformer, and it's going to be a good flash when it gets to catching up with itself. You don't have that problem with the DC transformer, but this one here, when it's hot, you don't touch the two together for very long, or else you'll blow your transformer or breaker, or something. So it's you'll see there's a big difference between this one and this one. This is like a top fuel dragster, and this is more of a rally road course car. So that's a little bit of it in a nutshell. We'll go ahead and fire this baby up and get ready to go. We're hot. Okay, you can see already the wood's starting to dry out. And I just remembered I did not get my exhaust fan put on. So we'll do that, because we don't want to smoke us out. Right now, though, we've got a good burn going. We're going to keep that going as long as we can without getting into it. But you see where we got the fire going now? It's burning deep channels. These are about to catch each other. When they do, wow, it gets hot. But you see, we've got two nice patterns laid down right there from our AC burn. Alright, so we've got done with our first burns, and we're going to come back and we're going to bring another pattern in here. And what I think I'm going to do is just work off of one end here, and then we'll call it a day on that board, move on to our next one. So we'll go ahead and fire our machine up once again. I need to plug her back in, because I always unplug this thing, even though I've got multiple safety switches on here and indicator lights to let me know that the power is not on. It's still just always good practice to unplug it when not in use. Now watch, this burn's going to catch up with itself real quick again, and it's not going to be near as long going as our next pattern. And I think I'm going to stop it there. Nice. Like the way that came out. Alright, so there's that one. Go ahead and set our probes in our holders, and we'll get us another piece of board here. This time I think we'll go ahead and do this board that we soaked with the oxalic acid. Let's see if we see any difference. Both of them are softwoods. We'll get this a little more oxalic acid on here. still plenty of time to pre-soak. A little bit thicker board, but as far as patterns go, it's a smaller board too that we're going to be working with, so it's going to go fairly quick. And I think what I'm going to do is see if we can't get a long burn to come up from this way. So in order to do that, we're going to want to incorporate a little bit of extra moisture. By doing so, we're going to take a rag and we're going to put a little water on it. Get it good and soaked. We'll drenching that real good. And I'm going to set it right there. Now theoretically what's going to happen is it's going to take longer for that to get going. I say that, it doesn't always work that way, but that's the idea. I'll even set it off the board just a little bit. Now actually we're going to put all that up there. As much moisture on there as we can. We'll hit it with some extra water just to make sure. So what we're trying to do is we're going to try and get the electricity to come in from one direction and kind of stay up here. And it's not easy to do, especially with this particular setup. Once again, that being our AC transformer. So going hot, activated there, the light's on, and we're getting ready to do our burn. So go ahead and plant that in there, plenty of moisture, and we'll roll it. Right there you can see oxalic acid is not burning as hot as we had with the baking soda. So we're going to stop it right there. And no point in beating a dead horse. We'll come back and we'll put another catalyst on there. Something that's going to give us a little more speed. And that being our baking soda. Salt is a fantastic conductor. But in this world of Lichtenberg figures and fractal burns, sometimes too much of a good thing is just too much. And in the case of salt, burns way too hot. You don't get good patterning from it because it's going so fast. It doesn't branch out like we saw with the first burn. And that's not really what we're trying to do here. With these particular patterns, I'm looking for a good tree-like pattern. Something that's really almost like a bonsai. Kind of like what we saw with that first one. So we'll set that baking soda on there. Let it set. Maybe give it a little bit more. Just so it's soaked in good. Now where I don't want the baking soda really is up here on our wet rag. So we're trying to put the baking soda, even though the whole board's wet, we're concentrating this particular catalyst right here in the area where we're wanting to burn, and it's going to be on this lower part of the board. Now we will get some burn coming in eventually from the top because that will be heating up, but hopefully the majority of it will be coming from down here. Alright, so get ready there. Sit here. Hot. Let's see what we get. Already noticing a difference with the baking soda. Get some nice branching. We're not going anywhere up top. It's going good. It's going good. There it goes. And we're going to stop it right there. Alright, so now what we do have is a lot of charring down here on this end. That will clean up, but in the meantime, I want to stop that burn up there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to soak the fool out of it again and see if we can stop it. Now the problem with this is once you get that burn going, it's a lot harder to control it. And I've yet to figure out a way that we can put something on where those carbon marks have started and stop it from wanting to run some more. Unfortunately, that's not the case. We're also going to put some more water down here in this area because I don't want any more of that burning. And we do want some more freckle rolling out of here. So, you got that? Got that. Now, I think part of the reason we saw some of this coming up here is that we did get some baking soda that actually ran down into it. So, that baking soda works real good. sometimes, like I said, too much of a good thing, just too much. We're hot again. Alright, so we're going to come in from here, we're going to bring it off this side now. Roll, baby, roll. See, here's where I need you there, Tom, to go ahead and put a little bit of water on here for me. Need that third hand working. You're going to pass, aren't you?
I'm going to pass today, I think.
Alright, so we're going to stop it right
This
there.
is your use of the words dangerous.
Yeah, well, deadly dangerous.
Deadly and dangerous is what
And mighty
has
bright.
me a
too.
little hesitant.
Yes, I can understand. Well, hey. Now we can set you up with a
Oh, I've been set up by many people many times.
a hands-free unit, you know.
Right.
Leave it at that. Now you see these big carbon marks down here. Actually, when those get cleaning up, we'll see some nice little patterns in there, but still not quite what I'm looking for. So I think what we'll do is we'll wipe that down before we start our last burn on this end. And by doing so, hopefully I can get what I want, and that's not the dark charred carbons and more of the branching. So we shall see. And that's what we're working towards. I'm going to soak full of this. Alright. Alright, so yeah, we got some serious charring there, but you'd be surprised. We'll still have some dark spots there, but by and large, it's not going to be near as bad as it looks right now. And so, there's that. We'll do one more of this. We'll get over here on the oak piece, because I do want to show you the difference in the oak. As a matter of fact, we'll just jump over to the oak now, and then we'll do our last piece over here. So we got two good burns. Kind of interesting. See there? So once that cleans up, it's kind of like Christmas time, you know, when you're going down to open your presents, when you get to clean these out, because you just really don't know what you got until you clean them.
I mean, I think it looks beautiful the way it is now.
But it definitely an interesting process.
The one before it I thought was gorgeous too.
I tell you, some of my more favorites are the simpler ones. I'm going to go ahead and do this same technique on this board and see if we can get a little something working off of it. Set this out of the way. And now we've got to remember, we don't want to use baking soda on this one. I mean, if we have to, we can always come back and clean it up with the oxalic acid, and that's one of the reasons I got it. But we're going to go ahead and try the oxalic acid with yolk, because in the past I have had decent results with this catalyst and this type of wood. But you'll be able to see right away the difference in the hardwood versus the softwood. What you'll immediately notice, or what we should notice, is we're not going to get near the branching that we did with this. It's going to stay more along the lines of the grain, and it's you know, it's oak, so we'll see. See, we already got a little bit of stain down here from where I dripped some baking soda on there. So that's that ugly green we don't want. All right, go ahead and we'll give that a good soak on this end. It's our show, I hope. All right. you would, do our fan there for us there, Doc. Go ahead and wipe this down a little bit, and that'll help it.
Did you encounter the same issues you did with the previous one?
The previous,
With the catalyst?
as far as
It not running fast like you would like it to.
well, I think a lot of that was just due, I believe, to the moisture. It was just too much moisture on top, and the electricity was trying to get going, trying to get a foothold, and because of the amount of moisture that was on top, it really didn't. The yoke a little bit more finicky than the softwood, so what we're having to do is kind of work with it a little bit and see. You know, I'm basing what I'm seeing and kind of adjusting towards that. You know, right away I could tell that I had too much moisture on the board. So, once again, too much is not always a great thing. So what I did was go ahead and wipe it down some. I do want lots of moisture down here on our rag where we're trying to keep it from burning as we try and do a one-directional burn. Not always the easiest thing to do. I mean, we are dealing with electricity that does what it wants. I mean, I kind of suggest it, but let's face it, it does what the heck it wants.
Right.
Alright. So, back up here, down here, and up. To this one. Starting to move a little bit, and as it's going to move now, it's starting to dry it out, and as it dries it out, it'll react better. See, it's starting to get a little more branching out of it now that it's drying some. The magic formula of the right content of electricity is what we're really looking for. And I think we'll stop it there. Come back over here. Still not giving me what I'm looking for. Not very spectacular. You know, I'm going to have to work with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to try something else. Got more than one trick up my sleeve here when it comes to catalysts. You know what does work real well? Seawater. Because you got a lot of ions in that seawater, and the ions have a positive reaction with the electricity.
But didn't you say salt was something that you didn't want to use?
Yeah, it was straight salt, yes, but sea salt is, or seawater is not straight sea salt.
So some amount of salt is
Salt,
okay.
but the key, as I said, salt water has ions in it.
Right.
Those positive charged ions have a positive reaction with what we're doing here. Pedialyte. Put a little Pedialyte down there and see if we get any difference out of that. We'll have to let it soak in a little bit, and then we'll come back and wipe it down. But I'm thinking maybe, just maybe, that'll be enough. And if not, the old ace in the hole, borax.
Borax.
Can't beat it. Good for a lot of things, and believe it or not, it mixes well with that oxalic acid and makes for a real nice catalyst.
Borax has tons of uses.
Mm-hmm. And it's organic, isn't it?
It is. I've been
So is
out.
oxalic acid.
I've actually been out to Death Valley, California, to the borax plant where they harvest it.
I've watched Death Valley Days and seen old films shot out there. Interesting. The whole story of borax.
Yeah.
The story of the 20 mule, was it 20 team mule?
Right.
Or 20 mule team? Borax. You know, where that name came from. Because it took that many mules to haul those big loads of borax.
Right.
And actually pulled a train.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so looks like that is soaked in. Yeah, I believe that's soaked in. I believe we don't even need to wipe it down. If so, it won't be much. Alright, we're going hot. Back up here. Let's see. It's trying. But not very spectacular. So, alright. Now it's borax time.
Now, Brad, is this typical?
Sometimes. I mean, there's a lot of factors working here. And that's why we started off with the softwood. Because I wanted you to see what we were able to do right out the gate with some pretty impressive figures. And I knew that the oak was going to be temperamental. The key to oak is getting that perfect balance of moisture, catalyst, and electricity. That's where you get a really nice burn. And you'll find yourself having to work with it. But you can make, you know, lemonade from too many lemons. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Right.
Because that's dealing with oak. And, you know, even though we've allowed it to pre-soak, it probably could have used longer. Just, you know, guess here. We're going to go ahead and take a little borax. We're going to throw it in with our oxalic acid. And we're going to mix that up. Now, believe it or not, the one of the most powerful conductors as far as chemicals go that we could mix with the water, and I forget the chemical compound itself, but it's used in damp rid. It's basically used to take moisture out of the air. And that is a very powerful conductor. It really amps up your water conductivity. The problem is, it does too much. More so than salt. And you'll get a lot less. I mean, we've had burn marks that would have been nothing and covering the whole board with just a straight line and a lot of charring had we been using something along those lines. But by doing this and messing with it and fidgeting with it, we're continuously adding moisture content to the oak itself. It's continuously soaking it up. When we put the heat to it, it soaks it up more. So, and we're trying to stay away from the baking soda because we don't want it to look like that. Just so. So, set this on here. Try and keep as much as we can away from these. Yeah, that's a lost cause there, but oh well, we'll just keep lots of moisture on that part. Let this soak in. Let's see what we can get coming from this way. Now, you always pull out that DC transformer, and we'll get a little different reaction from it. It'll be a slower burn, but by slower, it takes more time, dries the wood more. It doesn't burn as much in the way of charring. So, you know, it's still something you gotta kind of work with, and that's why I use two transformers, you know, because sometimes I don't get the desired effect that I'm looking for with one particular transformer, so I can go over to the other one. Or in the case of this board that we're going to be doing over here, finishing up on it, you know, I didn't get the desired effect I was really looking for overall with the AC transformer, so I can come back and do the finer details with the DC. And I think I'm going to let that soak just a little bit more. Alright, so we've given this a little bit of time now to go ahead and let the borax, along with the oxalic acid, soak into the wood, and let's see if we get the effect we're looking for. So we'll hope and try, and if not, we're going to be setting up the DC transformer next anyway, so we'll see what that does. But it's trial and error. No perfect science to it, that's for sure. And already we're seeing a big difference right there. And see if we can try and switch this around so I'm not obstructing the camera. Back over here. And right now you can see that we're not seeing the charring that we saw with the first layout. And we're getting some good branching going. I'm going to move it up here. over here. Now we're getting that desired effect we're looking for. You can see the board's starting to dry out some. Look at these trails are coming back on me. And that's wild. Don't see that too often.
Yeah, you don't see them coming back on you?
Not the opposite direction. Usually they're heading away from it. But because we already had some charring there, I'll go ahead and add to these now. Yep. Starting to get a little hot up there, so stop that. We'll get real good moisture content with the board now. So what we're going to do, we're going to soak the fool out of that. And we're going to mist down here. We got some moisture working. Just add a little bit more. Don't want it too dry. We got some nice patterns working here, so we'll see if we can keep building onto those. Try and fill in down here a little bit and roll it on out. Little extra moisture there. That was a little bit drier. You got some action up there at the top of the board. See if we can run these on up and finish our trees out. Pretty good. Looking pretty good. Let's see if we can get one right there. See, this is the problem with the AC transformer. You can't get them close like that. It wants to catch itself real quick. We could have got away with it with the other transformer, but I think we're going to go ahead and stop it right there. I'm pretty happy with what I've got. I like it. May want to try and add maybe just a little over here. And that's going to be it. We'll call that one a day. Alright. So, while my eyes recover, we'll shut this baby down and put it in retirement. And we'll break out our DC transformer to get on with our last piece. Alright, what we got here is a DC transformer now, and our last board, and we're going to be using this one for detail and kind of filling in the areas that I didn't get quite the burn patterns I did. And one of the reasons I didn't get some of those burn patterns I was looking for was because this is a milled piece of board and actually not a piece of plyboard. And because it was milled, it was still in that green state, but not so green, and it was real finicky. More finicky than the oak, believe it or not. So It was surprising that I got the burn pattern I did out of it, but still not quite what I was looking for. One of the great things about this transformer, once it gets going, and we'll go ahead and we'll wipe it down, is you can work these two probes in close proximity of each other and not have that flash up that we had from the AC transformer. So, different type of current, different type of delivery system, whole different result. A lot slower, more quiet. The probe then wanting to stay in its holder. That's okay. We're just painting fine lines here basically. And you see we're getting some nice branching off of this. Real nice detail, but it's a whole lot slower. And it's going to act different too because these two currents aren't trying to catch each other necessarily. What they're doing is just kind of doing their own thing out there. Go ahead and stop this. So one thing I don't like is that little switch set up. Make sure we're off. Readjust our electrode. Get it hot again. And come back in with some more detail. Now these, with this transformer too, I can actually walk it around a whole lot easier than if I was using the other transformer. Because I can get these two right here next to each other. See, we wouldn't have been able to get away with that other transformer. It would have been arcing out. It would have been jumping arc between the two electrodes. Not even, it would have bypassed the wood altogether. But you see these two currents are kind of doing their own thing there. They're not trying to catch each other. They're not trying to make a big flash. They're just kind of doing their own little thing. And that's why I say, you know, we can get away with using this for detail. And gives me a little more flexibility, more options when I'm creating a piece. Stop this for just a second here. Readjust my probe. These ain't the wands I normally use with this setup, but so it's going to be a little finicky on me. You know, we'll continue with almost like laying down little snowflake patterns in here. And these are just going to be random patterns, nothing in particular. I am going to start working off of the center of this a little bit so we get some detail on it, but I'm just kind of adding some detail to the edge right now, almost like a border. But a lot of times the electricity, it just does its own thing. And I think it's channels paranormal activity, believe it or not. You know, paranormal activity is an energy source, feeds off of energy. This is energy. It's also a medium. Think I'm kidding, huh? I can show you on this piece of furniture behind me. I'm not schooled in ancient languages, but I'm pretty sure there's some writing on that thing. And I'll show you when we get done here. And you can decide. Since I've worked at a radio station for 30 years, I can tell you they are a hub of paranormal activity, mainly due to the huge ground system that encompasses an AM transmission tower, and the fact that I've got a lot of energy flowing to that thing. So I have seen some strange occurrences at the radio station, along with other individuals have seen unexplained occurrences.
And so you put it down to the energy.
That's what I equate it to. I mean, when a person dies, do they die?
Right.
Some believe they go on to heaven.
Right.
I believe there's an energy force there. And energy goes. Energy's non-stop. It's infinite. It's just channeled in a different way.
I would agree with that.
Some believe so. I'm no master of that school, but I do see it being a feasible possibility. Because I am the type of thinker that believes anything is possible, except for Bigfoot. Too damn many trail cameras not to have solid evidence by now. Yeah, so you see, we're just kind of adding to this. Putting some more detail down. We're doing what the other transformer couldn't and wouldn't do.
The smaller fine details.
Smaller detail and branching that I didn't get off of. See, because I'm creating branches off this branch.
And those fissures look smaller too. They're not as deeply cut.
They're not as deeply cut. There's more fine detail. You'll be able to see them, especially once we get the carbon burned or cleaned off of them. But you see, it's just kind of doing its own thing. It's not necessarily going after itself and not really trying to make a big show, but it is making a big impact on what it's doing with the medium. And that's one of the reasons I call this my workhorse, because I use the fool out of this transformer. It's just been a great transformer. So yeah, if I'm doing a small object and I've got to be working these probes in close proximity to each other, this is definitely my go-to setup. Almost lull you to sleep. It's just kind of peaceful to watch the little lights just kind of dance and flicker and do their thing.
Right.
Kind of tranquilizing almost.
Sedate.
Yeah, I could go for some sedation, some tranquilization. Winding this thing down, I think we'll do a couple of them here. Getting ready to wrap this baby up, put a bow on it, and send it home. I think I noticed a lot of similarities to welding in this too, especially when it comes to getting your arc started.
Right.
Because sometimes it takes a little tapping of the electrode, if you will, to encourage the currents to start running. So it do remind me of such. This is an ideal transformer too for doing the wood trim, especially when it comes to some of the smaller, finer detail trim.
Right.
And one that I'll be using for this Lane coffee table behind me, because it's not going to get a lot right in the center. It's going to get one piece right in the very center of it, and then it's going to be more border, I believe, is what I've decided on with that. Just like my research I do on this stuff, sometimes I have a piece and I put a lot of time into figuring out which direction I'm going to go with it. And one of the pieces I've had done for quite some time now, and still not done because I've got to put a finish on it. I've come across a technique that somebody has really done a phenomenal job of doing some type of detail work, and that's really what I was looking to see with my piece. And I'm going to see if I can master their technique, or at least come close to duplicating what they've been able to accomplish. But their end result of doing what they've done is just outstanding, and that's what I had envisioned for this piece. And it's funny because that piece started off as a test board, and the test worked. So gave me one of my pride pieces. All right, so that's it. We're going to call that a day. Alrighty, so now we're going to clean the carbon out of here and see what we got. So we got my trusty helper here, / cameraman. Go ahead and pour it away. One of the problems we'll have with this is we've got to clean this little spot off here, but hey, we got oxalic acid for that, so
Right.
we're going to go ahead and get these carbon marks taken care of first. You can see that this is going to be quite a bit different than our softwood.
Right.
But still striking nonetheless.
Oak is always harder to work with, you said, right?
Well,
Any hardwood.
It's got its challenges, and it's got its pluses and its minuses, like anything else. Depending on how you want to look at it. You remember, we were able to achieve a lot of this by, using that little transformer.
Right.
And getting the right catalyst and the right moisture content to it. You can see where we soaked in more right here. That's where that water had sat longest.
Right.
And more, drenching part of it. So it's soaked in. That'll eventually dry out, and
It's going to make a lovely cabinet door.
But yeah, you know, or a wall hanging, you know, whatever direction it goes in. And I may look at it and decide, well, maybe it needs a little more patterning around the edge, like some of these other pieces I've done. You know, but it's always a work in progress, you know, because once we get done with that, then comes the fun. And that's putting a nice little stain on it, and then the finishing.
Right.
So we'll end up probably putting a varnish coat on here with a spray gun, and call that a day. But next, we're going to have to clean that off. So we'll do that after we wrap it up here, and there's nothing to be seen, you know, just no barkeeper's friend. You get some green staining on your oak, barkeeper's friend, oxalic acid, a friend for that. So that's pretty much it, except we still got to go try and translate some words before you guys get out of here.
We'll do that, yes.
All right.
Well, we've had a very interesting day with Brad Myers and his fractal wood burning. Brad, I think what you did was extremely artistic, and you're definitely a talented individual. And I appreciate you letting us come into your home today and showing us what you do. I know there are many other things that you do, and perhaps we'll feature those on a future episodes, but this is a show unto itself. And again, thank you.
Absolutely. You know, I enjoyed it. You know, enjoyed sharing a little bit of my knowledge, and something I've found a passion in. Being an iron worker, it's kind of strange to see myself wrapping my head around wood.
Right.
It's something that always intimidated me because, you know, I'm not as intelligent as one might think, and, you know, as working with iron, it's forgiving. You know, if I cut too much, I can always put it back on. You can't do that with wood.
Right.
So it's hard to get a second chance with wood, but we've managed to make this happen today, and you know, it's something I enjoy doing. You know, it's something I didn't see myself really doing, and I don't know if it's really art, but it's burning wood. You know. And
Well,
fun.
to me,
and
if that's not artistic, nothing is. Like I said, I can see that in our studios on the wall with RPTV logo on here. So
I think it'll look good like that. We just have to get some letters burned in there next.
right.
And we may do that with a wood burner, and then again we may just try and do it in a fractal.
Well, we're going to put all your contact details at the end here. And again, Brad, thank you very much.
Absolutely, my friend. I appreciate the opportunity to come out and you know, spend a little time with you guys. Great show, and I enjoyed watching it, and now being a part of it, even better.
Thank you very much, Brad.
Absolutely.